I knew something was off when I walked into the break room and saw a half-eaten Caesar salad trembling on the edge of the fridge shelf like it had witnessed a crime. My crime, apparently, was doing my job too well. The VP's door was shut, always a bad sign, and the air felt tight, like someone had sucked all the oxygen out and replaced it with Axe body spray and LinkedIn buzzwords. But me, I was calm. After 8 years in this circus, I could read dysfunction like Braille on a wet napkin. That morning started like any other. 6:05 a.m., coffee thick enough to patch drywall, inbox full of panicked vendors trying to push past compliance protocols I'd written 3 fiscal years ago. I skimmed the messages, flagged a few, and slid into my rhythm, log audits, risk reconciliations, those wonderful little red flags that only popped up if you knew where to look. No one else bothered. The CEO called it Kayla's voodoo dashboard. The CFO? He called me the insurance whisperer. I didn't get medals or shout-outs or those dumb team-building escape rooms with cold pizza and warm La Croix. What I got was silence when things didn't catch fire. That's the mark of doing your job right. Nobody notices. The only people who noticed were external auditors and our insurer's compliance team, both of whom treated me with the wary reverence normally reserved for bomb diffusers and taxidermists. My office wasn't much, just 4 beige walls and a second-hand ergonomic chair that leaned harder than our intern after one IPA. But inside that bland box, that's where the bones of the company lived. Risk logs, continuity frameworks, mitigation matrices, yeah, thrilling bedtime material, I know. But every line I wrote was another brick in the fortress keeping us from regulatory Armageddon. On Thursdays, I'd have my one-on-one with the CFO. Quiet guy, ex-KPMG, eyes like he was permanently reviewing a spreadsheet behind his corneas. He didn't emote much, but he always listened when I flagged a concern. That vendor's insurance cert doesn't match their asset profile. He'd nod, let's pull it. That was the rhythm, catch, confirm, correct. No flash, no drama, just the sound of a well-oiled system not failing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And if you've made it this far, do me a favor, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Yeah, I know, everyone says that, but seriously, it helps the team keep doing what we do. Keeps these stories coming. Plus, it lets me pretend people actually care about risk officers. Anyway, my role was buried deep in the structure of the firm, not flashy, but fundamental. It had something called a named officer clause, a dusty little designation buried in the operational charter, older than the espresso machine and more powerful than anyone realized. The kind of thing you don't mess with unless you enjoy setting off landmines with your face. I'd signed that designation 5 years ago. The CFO knew it. Legal knew it. Hell, even the janitor probably knew it after fixing my lockbox drawer 3 times. Every morning, I ran continuity checks on our vendor matrix, scanned for expired contracts, updated the risk register, flagged anomalies, like that time a vendor uploaded a fake ISO cert with Comic Sans in the footer. Rookie move. I shredded it in 5 minutes flat. Still, no praise, just more silence. Maybe a grunt from the CFO when I saved us from a 6-figure fine. Maybe a nod from legal when I preempted a GDPR violation by 3 weeks. That was my kingdom, one where the only throne was an HR-approved office chair, and the crown was a lanyard with 3 ID badges and a panic button. But I was proud of it. I kept the place running while others played office politics and posted Slack memes about hustle culture. My work wasn't decorative. It was defensive architecture. And while the frat boys with MBAs paraded around barking about growth hacks, I was the one patching the legal duct tape on their broken initiatives. I knew how many contracts we were tied into that had risk clauses with landmine language. I knew which vendors were 2 missed invoices away from triggering breach. I knew our insurance policy better than the broker who sold it. And I knew, deep in my bones, that none of them had a clue how fragile their little empire was. Still, I kept my head down, did the work, smiled when someone stole my printer paper, and acted like I should thank them for reducing inventory. Until the day the new VP arrived. But we're not there yet. Not quite. That morning, I caught a glance of myself in the mirrored panel by the elevator. Blazer buttoned, hair tied back. Eyes a little tired, maybe, but steady. I looked like someone you wouldn't notice unless the fire alarm went off and I was the only one who knew the code to shut it down. And let me tell you something, the alarm was about to go off. His name was Trent. Of course it was. Showed up on a Monday wearing a watch that probably cost more than my car and cologne that could kill a cat at 50 feet. First words out of his mouth weren't hi or nice to meet you, nope. It was, wow, it's like walking into a filing cabinet in here. He said it loud, too, so everyone in the open office could hear, laughing like he'd just cured cancer with that zinger. Trent wasn't hired. He was installed like malware. The founder had stepped back, some health issue involving boats and a new wife named Skylar, and suddenly here comes this VP of operational velocity. That's what his badge said, not risk, not compliance, not even operations. No velocity, like he was here to slam the pedal to the floor and drive the company straight into a tree, grinning the whole way. Nepotism? Probably. No one confirmed it, but Trent walked like the place owed him rent. I did some digging. His last job was strategic initiatives lead at a startup that folded faster than a cheap lawn chair. But he knew how to talk. Oh, did he know how to talk? Buzzwords like landmines scattered in every sentence. Synergy uplift, risk tolerance curve. Let's ideate failure as a success state. I had to chew Tums after every all hands. He strutted through his first week like he was auditioning for a reality show. Fired off Slack messages at 2 a.m. to prove he was grinding. Scheduled 5 meetings about meetings. Reorganized 3 departments before HR could even finish printing his welcome banner. And then, inevitably, he found me. "You're Kayla, right?" he said one afternoon, strolling into my office without knocking like he was the damn fire marshal. "You're the risk lady, risk lady." Like I was handing out coupons at a casino. I nodded, manager of risk and continuity. He sat down in my chair, legs wide like he owned the carpet. "Cool, cool. So hey, I was going through the shared drive, holy data dump Batman. You write all that risk stuff? Those are our compliance frameworks, yes. Yeah, okay. So here's the deal, half of that is straight bureaucratic clutter. I mean, who even reads mitigation reports? No offense." I just stared at him, long enough for the silence to start sweating. "Look," he said, leaning forward like he was confiding some great secret, "we need to move faster. This insurance stuff, legalese jungle. We're not going to scale with a 10-pound binder of red flags." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Because I knew exactly what he was. A fast-talking haircut with daddy's contacts and a startup-shaped ego. And I knew how this movie ends, usually with an audit and someone crying in a stairwell. But not me, not this time, so I smiled. Just enough to be polite. "Understood," I said, the most dangerous word in my vocabulary. That night, I started backing up everything. Not just the current logs, everything. Vendor contracts, incident reports, old risk matrices dating back to 2016. I pulled the named officer designation form from the operational charter and made 3 copies. One went into my fireproof box at home. One went to my sister in Colorado. The last, locked in a USB drive hidden inside a fake lipstick tube on my desk. Paranoid? Maybe. But when the ship starts creaking and the rats start dancing, you don't wait for the leak to hit your shoes. Over the next 2 weeks, Trent wormed his way into every team. Rebranded our weekly status call as a velocity sync. Old IT to sunset our ticketing system because it felt legacy. Turned my continuity dashboard into a pie chart he called the chilometer. And worst of all, he held a town hall where he told the whole staff that compliance is a mindset, not a document. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted metal. The CFO gave me a look afterward, one of those hang in their glances you give a dog at the vet. He knew, but he wasn't going to step in. Not yet. I started keeping a private log. Dates, times, decisions Trent made that introduced risk, unqualified vendors onboarded without vetting, a deleted firewall report he called duplicate noise, a client contract signed with a missing indemnity clause because the language was too dense. Each one got a neat entry in my personal file, along with screenshots, timestamps, and a summary. Just in case. And the whispers started. People who used to nod when I walked past now looked down. Trent had momentum, and no one wanted to get run over. I became the old guard, the process blocker. I heard one of the new analysts call me Risk Grandma. Jokes on them, I was the only one who knew where the insurance policy was actually stored, and who was named in it. One afternoon, I caught Trent standing in the hallway outside my office, talking to HR. He didn't see me, he was smirking. Nodding, I didn't hear the words, but I felt them. My clock had started ticking. By week 4, I wasn't just invisible, I was being strategically erased. It started small. The kind of office politics that smells like air freshener and feels like a paper cut under your fingernail. One morning, I logged in and found that my team, what used to be the risk and continuity pod, was now listed under vendor optimization. No heads up, no memo, just gone. Moved under a guy named Derek who thought a firewall was something you built with bricks. I walked over to Trent's glass fishbowl of an office to ask what happened. He didn't even look up, just sipped his green smoothie and muttered, "We're trying a new alignment structure. More agility." "Agility?" I said. "Your agility just assigned continuity tracking to a guy who once flagged an internal DNS check as malware." Trent smiled like I'd complimented his watch. "It's a learning opportunity." For who, exactly? Meetings got worse. I used to be the quiet voice of reason, the one who asked the awkward questions that saved our asses when legal started sniffing. Now, I couldn't even get invited to the table. I'd find out decisions had been made after the fact, vendor selections, SLA changes, insurance coverage discussions, and only when someone accidentally forwarded the wrong calendar invite. The best one, Risk Streamline Strategy Session. My name wasn't on it, that one got me. I cornered Trent afterward. Was there a reason I wasn't looped into that discussion? He blinked at me like I'd asked why the sun rises. It was a brainstorming session. We didn't want to bog it down with documentation stuff. By documentation, you mean federal compliance and insurance continuity? He shrugged. Tomato, tomato. I started finding tasks on my desk that didn't even belong to my department. Vendor swag inventories, website copy reviews. He even forwarded me an email asking for input on our Earth Day social post. like I was suddenly the unpaid intern of moral optics. The message was clear: stay busy, stay out of the way, and shut up. The only one who seemed even vaguely uncomfortable was the CFO. We passed each other in the hallway one afternoon after a brutal all-hands where Trent cut me off mid-sentence to mock a term I used, risk saturation threshold, and then doubled down by calling it a Kayla-ism. People laughed, not because it was funny, but because they didn't want to be next. Later, the CFO pulled me aside. He didn't apologize directly, God forbid, but he gave me this half grimace, half sigh, and said it's a transition period. Just try to stay above it. Above what? Getting reassigned to plant watering duty? He didn't answer, just nodded like he had somewhere else to be. Maybe under a rock, so I adjusted. I stopped speaking in meetings unless spoken to. I started blind copying my own email account on every interaction. Every decision I was overridden on got documented and timestamped. Every deviation from protocol went in my personal log. I kept everything clean and quiet, like a sniper filing receipts, and I stopped using the office coffee pot. Small thing maybe, but the last time I poured a cup, it tasted faintly of lemon dish soap and something chemical I couldn't place. I don't think it was personal. Just the atmosphere now, sour, petty, corporate in the worst way. I even caught Derek using my old continuity slide deck at a vendor review. He'd changed the color scheme, slapped his name on the footer, and misread 3 of the graphs. When the vendor asked why there was a 14% spike in third-party breach indicators in Q2, Derek said, probably a data entry issue. Don't worry about it. I watched it on the call like I was staring at a car crash in slow motion. And Trent? He called it great initiative. My risk matrix had become a coloring book in the hands of idiots. At night, I'd lie in bed and play it back. Every snub, every dismissal, every little paper cut of power being stripped away. But I didn't fight, not yet. I made a decision instead. If I was going down, I wasn't going down messy. I was going down documented. I wanted every change, every risk introduced by Trent's velocity model, every step of my erasure preserved like an insect in amber. Because one day, maybe not soon, but someday, someone was going to ask what went wrong. And when they did, I'd hand them the keys to the whole damn autopsy. Until then, I smiled, I nodded. I watered the office plant Trent kept forgetting was fake. It was a Thursday. Of course it was. Thursdays were always the slow bleed of the week, just far enough from Monday's chaos and Friday's exhale to feel like a punishment. I'd made it halfway through my lukewarm oatmeal when Outlook pinged with a mandatory attendance invite. Subject: Q3 risk and vendor continuity sync. Sent by Trent. No agenda, no prep materials. Just a meeting dump like a warning shot. I knew it would be bad. I didn't know it would be final. The conference room was full when I walked in. Too full. Legal, finance, ops, all packed in like sardines in suit jackets. Trent stood at the head of the table with his sleeves rolled up like he was about to deliver a TED talk no one asked for. A slide deck was already up, frozen on a chart I didn't recognize. Glad everyone could make it, he said, doing that finger gun thing like we were all contestants on a game show. Today's about confidence, investor confidence, partner confidence, internal alignment. And what builds confidence better than reduced vendor risk? I felt it before I saw it. That gut twinge that tells you someone's about to light a fuse under your work. He clicked to the next slide. Massive pie chart labeled Q3 vendor risk exposure mitigated by 92%. 92%. My stomach sank. That number wasn't just wrong, it was nuclear wrong. A fiction so bold it might as well have come with its own theme music. We were sitting closer to 68%, and only that high because I'd spent 2 months arm wrestling a cybersecurity audit through 3 non-compliant vendors in Ohio. I raised a hand. Calm, controlled. Actually, that figure's incorrect, I said. Based on current tracking, mitigation is at 68.2%. The 92% doesn't reflect open items from Tier 2 vendors, particularly the 2 flagged for SOC2 gaps. Trent didn't even blink, just smiled like I'd told him his fly was down. Kayla, that's a lovely spreadsheet brain of yours, but we're focusing on sentiment here, not just raw numbers. And frankly, you've always had a bit of a chicken little complex, haven't you? A few people chuckled, not the good kind. The kind that feels like swallowing glass. I tried again. This isn't sentiment, these are material risks. If one of those vendors has a breach enough, he said louder. He turned to the room. Look folks, Kayla's great at finding fires under rugs, but sometimes you gotta lift the rug and throw it out. This is the new model, forward-facing, agile, unburdened by doomsday spreadsheets. I kept my face blank even as my pulse started hammering in my ears. Trent looked at the door. Security, can we get someone in here? I think Kayla needs a little time off to recalibrate her energy. Maybe go organize her continuity folders. I turned my head slowly, making sure everyone saw my expression. Neutral, not broken, not surprised. Security arrived like they'd been waiting outside, and to cop in khakis who couldn't meet my eyes. Trent grinned and added, we'll call this a strategic timeout. That got a full laugh from the room. Someone even clapped. I stood up, didn't flinch, didn't stutter. I reached for my bag, the same worn leather tote that had carried 8 years' worth of notebooks, vendor logs, and compliance printouts. Slid my laptop inside, picked up my badge. Kayla, Trent said, feigning regret. No hard feelings. I looked at him for a long moment, and I smiled just enough to be remembered. Don't worry, I said softly. You'll see me again, probably when it matters most. His smirk twitched. I walked to the door, security followed, but I didn't need them. I wasn't resisting, I wasn't fighting, I was done. At the security kiosk in the lobby, I paused, swiped my badge one last time. The screen blinked, exit 4:42 p.m. That swipe wasn't just a formality, it was a timestamp, a line in the sand. The exact moment the company severed itself from its last working risk protocol, and from the only person who knew how deep their exposure ran. Outside, the air was thick with that sticky heat that makes everything feel a little unreal. I kept walking, past the parking garage, past the smoking interns, past the bronze plaque out front with the company's proud little motto etched into it, progress through precision. I almost laughed. Behind me, glass walls shimmered with false transparency. And inside them, a man with a fake chart, a fake smile, and no idea what he'd just triggered. The meeting room was cold. Not the kind of cold you fix with a thermostat, but the kind that seeps in when money enters the room and everyone suddenly forgets how to blink. Long mahogany table, bottled water lined up like crystal soldiers, phones silenced, tempers tighter than the CFO's tie knot. This was the meeting. $150 million in play. Weeks of prep, endless models, deck after deck of projections and promises. The kind of funding round that didn't just change balance sheets, it redefined them. And I wasn't there. But my absence, that was about to become the loudest thing in the room. Trent sat at the front naturally. Elbows splayed, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled just enough to show off that hideous tattoo on his forearm that said disrupt or die. The CFO was 2 seats down, face pale, lips pursed, hands folded so tightly his knuckles looked polished. Legal counsel Janine was next to him, already thumbing through the regulatory binder like it might start smoking. Across the table sat the investor delegation, 4 of them. Quiet, tailored, eyes like accountants at a murder trial. Introductions went quickly. Trent did most of the talking, called himself a bridge between vision and velocity, said things like data-fueled disruption and lean operationalization, and somehow managed to make every syllable sound like it was wearing sunglasses indoors. The lead investor, a woman named Harper, cut through it. Before we move to the projections, I want to confirm your current insurance coverage status. Specifically, the continuity of compliance leadership. We noticed there was a recent change in personnel. Trent didn't flinch, just leaned back and grinned like a man who had rehearsed for this. Handled, he said. We've pivoted to a more streamlined structure. Flattened the team, actually. We've embedded risk functions directly into ops, keeps things nimble, more responsive. Harper didn't smile, so you removed the named risk officer, he chuckled. That title, it was more ceremonial than functional. We've modernized, distributed responsibility. It's the way forward. That was the moment Janine coughed. Not a sick cough. Not even a nervous one. It was sharp. Intentional. She didn't look at Trent. Just opened a folder and slid a single sheet of paper forward. The covenant language for insurance coverage is specific, she said softly. It requires uninterrupted oversight by a named officer listed on record with our insurer. The designation is tied to the original operational charter. There's no clause for flattened teams. Trent blinked, then shrugged. Well, I mean, yeah, Kayla, she was listed. But we moved on. She was holding us back. We're innovating now. Silence. The kind of silence that presses on your chest, that makes you suddenly aware of your heartbeat in your ears. Harper's associate leaned forward. Can we confirm when this change occurred? Trent shifted in his chair. I don't see why that's relevant. We've ensured compliance is baked in across all teams. We'll need the access logs for the day of the separation, Harper cut in, specifically security timestamping. Janine didn't move, didn't blink, just opened another folder. I've already requested it, she said. Trent's jaw tightened. The CFO reached for his water but didn't drink. From outside, behind the tinted glass, you could almost see the PR team starting to fidget in their bullpen. They weren't in the room, but they felt it too, the shift, the descent. The investor team sat back, waiting. One of them tapped a pen, not impatient, just counting down. Janine's phone buzzed once. She picked it up, read the message, and exhaled so softly it was almost reverent. Then she turned the screen to Harper. Harper read it, passed it to her associate. Then she looked at Trent. She was escorted out at 4:42 p.m. yesterday, she said. Her badge swipe was logged as final clearance. That timestamp was recorded without an interim designation being filed. Trent blinked. Okay, but what does that mean in plain English? The CFO whispered something. Trent's grin faltered. Harper leaned forward. Calm, final. It means, she said, your insurance coverage was voided the moment you walked her out that door. And in that moment, every buzzword Trent had ever spoken collapsed into static. No one spoke. The silence in that boardroom was thick enough to chew. You could almost hear the air itself getting nervous. Janine hadn't moved since passing the phone. The investor team sat statue still, their eyes not on Trent anymore, but on the screen glowing softly in front of them. A lawyer, Harper's apparently, quietly cleared his throat and leaned toward the conference line console. I'm going to need the full access control log from your security vendor, he said. Specifically, entries and exits from the compliance office between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. yesterday. Also, a full printout of badge activity for Kayla Hensley. Please expedite. No one argued. No one said we'll have to check with IT. The CFO just nodded once, jerky, stiff, and tapped a quick message into his phone. Trent tried to recover. He leaned back, that fake laxed posture like he was lounging on a yacht he didn't own. I think we're getting lost in the weeds here. He said, the real story is our forward momentum. These structural shifts are the reason we're poised for stop, Harper said without raising her voice. Just that one word, flat, measured, and terminal. Trent froze mid-sentence like someone had yanked the battery out of his brain. The only sound after that was the quiet hum of the AC. Then, a knock. A junior assistant entered, holding a tablet like it was made of plutonium. She didn't even approach Trent. She walked straight to the investor lawyer and placed it in front of him. Timestamp log pulled from Secure Scan, she whispered. Full entry-exit audit. Confirmed. The lawyer tapped, scrolled, paused, then zoomed in. His finger hovered over one line, then tapped again. Slowly, deliberately. 4:42:18 p.m. Hensley, Kayla exit scan confirmed escort required badge deactivated. There it was. The smoking gun in sans serif. He turned the tablet around and slid it silently across the polished table to the CFO. The CFO's eyes hit the screen, and whatever blood was left in his face drained completely. His lips parted slightly like he was about to say something, but all that came out was a soft, broken inhale. Janine looked over his shoulder and nodded once. Just once. Clause 12, she said, almost a whisper. The room contracted. Could feel everyone's pulse speed up without a single muscle moving. Even the blinds seemed to stand still, afraid to rustle. Trent finally broke the silence, voice cracking with a little too much bravado. Okay, look, so her badge got disabled, big deal. That's not termination. That's security protocol. HR must have logged it wrong. Janine didn't flinch. Security logs are automatically synced with HR actions, she said. That badge deactivation was processed the moment you requested her removal. The lawyer picked up again. And under your insurance covenant, Section 4B, Clause 12, any removal, forced departure, or unannounced vacancy of the named risk officer, without a 72-hour transitional designation filed, voids your operational liability coverage. That includes data breach, financial misconduct, compliance lapses, and all ongoing risk tolerance mechanisms. The moment she swiped out, your policy ceased to exist. You could hear Trent swallow. The investor associate tapped his pen once against his legal pad. One sharp click, then nothing. No coughing, no fake clearing of throats, no tech jokes to save face, just a vacuum of dread. The kind you only feel when a $150 million lifeline starts to quietly, coldly evaporate. Harper folded her hands. Who approved the removal? Trent opened his mouth, but the CFO beat him to it. His voice was hoarse. He did, and that was it. That was the sound. Not a gavel, not a siren. Just one man pointing and another man dying slowly inside his $900 shoes. Outside, the rain began to tap against the glass walls, soft, insistent, like a drum roll for the disaster still unfolding. The CFO's hand hovered over the tablet like it was a live wire. He tapped once, opened the Covenant PDF, and began scrolling, not fast but slow and deliberate, like a man searching for his own tombstone. His lips moved silently as he read. Then, in a voice low enough to make the room lean in, he spoke. Section 4B. Clause 12, he read aloud, eyes fixed on the screen. In the event of removal, termination, suspension, or operational disruption of the named risk officer, without a documented 72-hour transitional buffer or interim designation filed with the insurer, all active coverage related to operational risk, cyber liability, regulatory oversight, and fiduciary protection shall be considered void ab initio. He paused, blinked. Effective immediately at time of disruption. The sentence hit like a depth charge. Void ab initio from the beginning. Like the policy had never existed. Like they'd just been running naked through a minefield for 24 hours. No one moved, no one breathed. Trent looked around the table as if hoping someone would laugh. Maybe tell him this was a joke. Maybe break the tension with a snarky line about being agile or taking risks. But the punchline never came. Instead, Janine reached for her phone. Quiet, professional. She didn't need permission. She didn't even look at Trent. She dialed, waited, then spoke into the receiver, voice calm and clipped. This is Janine Carlson, in-house counsel for Genset Capital. We're confirming status on policy hash 719,834B with Crenshaw Insurance Group, specifically under Operational Clause 12. Yes, I'll hold. You could feel it building, the dread, the slow turning of gears in every investor's head. The realization that due diligence had just turned into damage control. The line picked up. Yes, Janine said, we're in a funding review session. We've just confirmed removal of the named risk officer at 4:42 p.m. yesterday. No interim filed. Can you confirm policy status? Pause. Longer pause. Then a tone shifted. Yes. Understood, Janine said. I'll notify the board. She hung up. No dramatics, no sigh, just quiet finality. And she looked at the table. Clause 12 is now active, she said. Coverage revoked. Trent let out a tiny exhale, the kind that starts as a scoff and dies in your throat. He looked at the CFO like he wanted him to intervene, to reinterpret the law with a shrug and a bro handshake. But the CFO just kept staring at the tablet. One hand covered his mouth, the other gripped his pen like it might save him from drowning. Across the table, Harper's face hardened. That investor poker mask snapped into place, the one you see right before a deal turns into a lawsuit. We were under the impression, she said slowly, that operational risk was fully covered through this quarter. Trent opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Look, this doesn't change the fundamentals. Our product, our revenue trajectory, Harper cut him off with a look. A small shake of the head. The kind people give you right before they walk away forever. This changes everything, she said. Behind her, her associate had already closed his laptop. Another investor reached for his phone, not to take a call, to send one. Fast thumbs, urgent eyes. Janine leaned forward. We'll need to pause all movement on the funding agreement. Indemnity clauses may need to be renegotiated, if not nullified outright. Trent tried to laugh, but it came out as a dry cough. This is ridiculous, he said, tone rising. Talking about one person. One clipboard-carrying risk analyst who couldn't adapt to modern ops. The room turned on him. The CFO looked up slowly. That clipboard-carrying analyst held the only legally recognized designation for risk oversight. You stripped her title without filing a transition. You walked her out. You deactivated her badge. She was toxic, Trent snapped. She was the named officer, Janine replied. You don't remove that person without a plan. Trent's mouth hung open, words forming and dying before birth. And then, for the second time that day, no one said a word. The room sat suspended between past and future, between what they thought they'd secured and what they'd just lost. All because Trent didn't want to be corrected in a meeting. Outside, a siren wailed down the street. Inside, the only sound was Harper slowly zipping up her folio and pushing her chair back. The chairs scraped back one by one, each sound sharp as a slap. Harper stood first, folio in hand, giving no eye contact, no handshake, no performative thank you. Just a short nod to Janine, who returned it, and a clipped professional line. We'll need to reassess terms internally. Expect an updated position by end of week. Then the funding team filed out. No small talk, no lingering, just the scent of burned bridges and lemon sanitizer. As the door clicked shut behind them, air inside the boardroom turned dense. No movement, no breathing, just the hum of recessed lighting and the faint thump of someone's pulse in their neck. Trent broke the silence first with a scoff that landed like a drunk apology at a funeral. Well, he muttered, forcing a smile that looked like a bad Botox ad that could have gone smoother. The CFO turned his head, slow, measured, and then he snapped, not loud, not explosive, worse, cold, controlled, lethal. Absolute goddamn idiot. Trent blinked. Excuse me, you think this is a stumble? The CFO hissed, voice low enough to make the table lean in. You voided the one clause in our insurance package that we cannot afford to breach. You paraded around calling compliance dead weight, and now the only thing we're ensuring is your exit. Trent raised his hands, defensive. Okay, hold on, there were 0 transition notes. Nobody told me she was that critical. She told you. Janine snapped, more than once. You ignored her, you mocked her. Come on, Trent said. Are we really going to pin this entire fiasco on me not playing nice with an analyst? She wasn't an analyst, the CFO barked. She was the named officer. Do you even understand what that means? Across the table, a board member finally looked up from his phone. Then another. A third tapped out a message, glanced at Trent, and shook his head slowly. A quiet thrum of real-time corporate disaster was unfolding in text threads, Slack channels, and off-the-record calls. Janine opened her laptop. We'll need to start immediate breach reporting to the insurer. That clause triggers exposure audit across all holdings. That includes vendor compliance, data integrity, even D&O coverage. If we don't get ahead of this, we're looking at public disclosure within the week. An internal counsel is going to eat this. CFO added, voice clipped. They've been warning us about this for years. We had the buffers, we had the coverage. You didn't just rip out a safety net, you pissed on it and set it on fire. Trent started to speak, but was cut short by the gentle ding of someone's phone. The CEO, he wasn't in the room, but his message came through to every device around that table. Just one line, sitting heavy in the group chat like a ticking grenade. Fix this, or step down. Silence, phones buzzed again. This time individual threads, private messages flying like shrapnel. One board member stood and stepped out. Another whispered to Janine. She nodded and began organizing documents, real documents, not PDFs and decks, but hard copy frameworks from the compliance vault. And Trent? He sat there blinking, finally realizing that the air around him wasn't discomfort, it was consensus. The CFO adjusted his glasses. I've got 30 minutes to draft a mitigation plan, he said. After that, I'm calling a special vote. And if I have to cast the tiebreaker, you won't, Janine said flatly. There won't be a tie. Trent finally stopped moving. No more finger tapping, no more fake smiles, just a man watching the fire he lit circle back around, slow and silent. Outside the conference room glass, the office kept humming, receptionists typing, sales reps laughing at something on Slack, people passing coffee like nothing had happened. But in that boardroom, the dam had broken. and every eye not on Trent was already looking for the person who could clean it up. They called a second meeting before lunch. No investor team this time, just legal, the board, the CFO, and Trent, who looked like he'd aged 5 years in an hour. His shirt was still crisp, but the swagger had leaked out somewhere between Clause 12 and the CEO's group chat ultimatum. The conference table felt smaller now. Warmer, too, like the lights had dipped a few Kelvin just to make the sweating more dramatic. Outside the glass walls, people kept working like they had no idea the company's spine had been yanked out through its own PowerPoint. Janine entered last. She was holding a thick folder, the kind of folder you only bring when someone's job or reputation is about to be erased in triplicate. No one offered small talk. No coffee. Just a single nod from the CFO. "Let's get it on the record," he said, voice like a scalpel. Trent tried to lead. "Okay, look, mistakes were made. I acted decisively based on the culture and structure I inherited. I didn't see sufficient documentation to justify the retention of an outdated role. Frankly, the risk office was redundant." "Stop," Janine said. She set the folder down, popped the clasps, and pulled out the oldest piece of paper in the entire company. The original operational charter. Actual paper. Yellowed edges, ink that looked like it had been signed during a power outage. She turned to a bookmark section, slid it across the table, and pointed to a line with one long, pale finger. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a slam. It was worse. Just the flat, unemotional truth in size 10 font, named Officer Risk and Continuity. Appointed, Kayla M. Hensley. No interim filed. Trent stared at it like he was trying to manifest a typo. "Okay," he said slowly, "but that's symbolic. It doesn't mean she was mission critical. It means you weren't authorized to remove her without transitional protocol." Janine didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. It was the stillness that did it, that terrifying, surgical calm that only lawyers and surgeons ever truly master. She turned to the CFO. No amendment was filed. No succession plan submitted. This designation tied her position directly to the insurance covenant and risk compliance with the SEC. The CFO looked down at the document like it had turned to stone. "She told me," he murmured. "I didn't listen." "She documented it," Janine added. "I found 3 memos, all flagged, all ignored." Trent leaned forward, desperate now. "She was deadweight. She created obstacles. She challenged me in front of, she protected you," the CFO snapped, finally cracking. "She protected all of us from the damn consequences you've just unleashed." Across the table, a board member closed her laptop and turned to the chair next to her. "Motion to restructure executive leadership effective immediately." Seconded, all eyes shifted. The CFO didn't argue. He didn't blink. Motion carried. Trent sat back like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback, didn't have a buzzword, even have the energy to defend himself. Just silence. And in that silence, every phone in the room vibrated almost simultaneously. The funding freeze alert had gone live. Investor wire status, on hold pending risk remediation. The money was gone. The room sat still for a beat too long, like everyone was waiting for the fire alarm to start screaming. But there was no alarm, no flames. Just the quiet collapse of a man who thought insurance clauses were optional. Meanwhile, 5 miles away, in a quiet little co-working space that smelled faintly of fresh coffee and printer ink, I clicked refresh on my inbox. One new message. Subject, contract approved, start Monday. I stared at it for a moment, let it sit there. Then I smiled, small, tired, just enough to feel like something real had finally landed. The logo on the email header, their biggest competitor. And now, mine too. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.